The Lighthousekeepers Promise. Once upon a time, in a quiet coastal village, there lived a young woman named Alara who loved the sea more than anything. Her father was a fisherman, and she had grown up hearing the songs of the waves and the cries of gulls. Every day, she would sit on the cliffs, sketching the ocean and dreaming of distant lands. On the far edge of the village stood an old lighthouse. Few went near it, except for the mysterious keeper, a solitary man named Kale. Rumor had it that Kale had once been a sailor, but no one knew why he chose to live alone with only the stars and storms for company. One stormy evening, as Alara was returning from the cliffs, a sudden gust knocked her down near the lighthouse. Kale appeared out of the mist, helped her up, and offered shelter from the rain. It was the first time she had seen his face closely. His eyes were deep and sad, yet kind. That night, they talked. And then the next. And the next. Over time, their connection grew. Kale told her stories of his travels, of foreign shores, sea monsters, and lost treasures. Alara shared her drawings and dreams. She made him laugh again, something he hadn't done in years. One day, Kale confessed his past. Years ago, he had lost someone he loved in a storm he could not prevent. Blaming himself, he had retreated to the lighthouse to watch over the sea, as if to guard others from the same fate. "I was afraid to love again," he said, looking at Alara, "but then you walked into my storm." Alara reached for his hand. "Then let me be your calm." Seasons passed. The villagers began to notice light returning not just to the lighthouse, but to Kale's face. Alara moved in with him, and together, they turned the lighthouse into a sanctuary, not just for sailors, but for anyone lost in the storms of life. Years later, they grew old together, still watching the sea. Kale never stopped keeping the light burning, not just for passing ships, but for Alara, the girl who brought him back to life. And even after they were gone, the lighthouse stood strong, its beams shining over the waves, a symbol of a love that weathered every storm. The last letter. In a small town nestled between hills and rivers, there lived a girl named Alara who owned a quaint little bookshop. She loved the scent of old pages and the way rain sounded on the glass windows while she read poetry behind the counter. Every morning, she would open her shop at 9, arrange the flowers by the window, and wait, not just for customers, but for something more, though she didn't know what. One day in autumn, a man named Adrian walked into the shop. He was quiet, with tired eyes and hands that trembled slightly when he picked up a book. He came back the next day, and the day after that. Alara learned that he was a writer who had lost the will to write after a personal tragedy. Over coffee and stories shared across the counter, something began to grow, gentle, unspoken, but real. They never declared love in grand ways. Instead, they left each other notes tucked into books. One said, "You remind me what hope feels like." Another said, "I wrote today because of your smile." With time, Adrian started writing again, not just books, but letters, one each day, addressed to Alara, though he never gave them to her. Then came the winter that changed everything. Adrian was diagnosed with a terminal illness. He didn't tell Alara. Instead, he kept writing letters, hundreds of them, sealing each one with a small red wax stamp in the shape of a feather. On the day he could no longer walk to the bookshop, he mailed a final package, a wooden box, filled with every letter he'd written, and a note on top that read, "If you're reading this, it means I can't be there anymore. But I still am, in these pages." Alara read one letter each night. Some made her laugh, others made her cry. They were stories, confessions, daydreams, and poems, all versions of love. In his absence, she discovered the depth of Adrian's heart, and she wrote back, not with pen and paper, but through the life she lived. She expanded the shop, opened a writing corner, and left blank notebooks for people to tell their own stories. Years later, travelers came from far away to visit Alara's bookshop, not just for books, but to feel the kind of love that left behind 317 letters in a wooden box. And every evening, as the rain tapped gently on the windows, Alara sat by the counter, one hand resting on a worn envelope, the other writing stories inspired by the man who taught her that even goodbye can be a beginning.